Opening your heart and your home to babies, children, teenagers, sibling groups that are temporarily in foster care is an amazing, sometimes challenging, yet very rewarding experience. The Foster a Leader podcast hopes to inspire and educate anyone that's thinking about becoming a foster parent. We will also introduce you to incredible foster caregivers, connect you with community resources, and inspire you to move forward in becoming a foster parent. April is Child Abuse Prevention Month, which is significantly important to the work that we do at Clark County Family Services, especially our foster care unit. Child Abuse Prevention Month really highlights what it takes to strengthen families, how people in the community, everyday educators, parents, community leaders, how we can help support and strengthen families so that child maltreatment and abuse just is prevented. Everybody can really play a role in this, in providing children an opportunity to grow up in a healthy, happy environment. Today, I'm joined by Mayra from Preventing Child Abuse Nevada, and she's here to talk with us, really educate our viewers on the risk factors of child abuse, but even more so, we're going to do a deep dive into the protective factors of child abuse. What are the protections that we can offer to kids? What can we do in our everyday lives that can truly help prevent child abuse and neglect? So, Mayra, thanks for joining me today. We're so happy that you could be here on the Foster a Leader podcast. Why don't you start off just by telling us about yourself and about Preventing Child Abuse Nevada?
Of course. Thank you for having me here. Hi, everyone. My name is Mayra Pacheco. My pronouns are they, them, or él, ella, ella in Spanish, and I am the program coordinator for Prevent Child Abuse Nevada. We are located at UNLV in the School of Public Health, and our mission is to, like you said, to prevent child maltreatment so that it never happens. And we do that through advocacy, through education, and through awareness. We want to inspire all communities and everyone, regardless to if you have a child or not, to know that we can all play a role in preventing child maltreatment.
That's a pretty big mission.
Yes.
And so I know that April is a big month for you guys. April is Child Abuse Prevention Month. Huge opportunity for outreach, awareness. And I want you to tell me a little bit more about Child Abuse Prevention Month. And I know that there's a special sign, the pinwheel. So tell me about the pinwheel and about the month in general.
Of course. Well, let's go a little bit into the history. So Congress signed Child Abuse Prevention Month to be on April in 1983. So now it doesn't seem, if you're like me, usually when I think the 80s, I'm like, it's not that long ago, but it's been a while now, right? Now that we're into 2024. But since 1983, April has been designated as Child Abuse Prevention Month. And starting in 2008, Prevent Child Abuse America, which is the national organization where we're part of, right? We're the Nevada chapter of them. They created the campaign called Pinwheels for Prevention. And for that, we created the symbol, the sign of the pinwheel. And the pinwheel is a reminder of the happy and healthy and the whimsical childhoods that we all deserve and that every single children deserves to have. So it's a reminder that we can all play a role and we can all do our part to ensure that children have happy and fun childhoods.
That's a really great symbol. And I see all the blue pinwheels planted around town right now. I see them at the Clark County Courts building. I know at our Clark County Family Services buildings, we have the pinwheels out. So that's a great sign as a reminder that every child does deserve to have a happy and healthy home.
Absolutely.
So risk factors that are associated with child abuse. Are there certain indicators that might be like a sign that a child is at risk of child abuse or neglect? Is there anything that people can look out for that might put a child more at risk?
Yes, absolutely. There are risk factors, and those are what we may call red flags, right? It doesn't necessarily mean that a child is being abused or neglected. It may mean that the family needs support, that the child needs additional support. But there are things for us to be mindful because they do increase that risk of a child experiencing abuse and neglect. And there are some factors that are fixed. So, for example, having a history of mental illness in the family. It can, and they don't change over time, right? It's just like that predisposition, things that we need to be mindful of, which helps us in that preventative approach to be more mindful and say, okay, there are things that are happening in the family that we need to keep track of and just be more mindful. There are things as a society level that we can do, right, to reduce some of that risk. And there are some factors that are variable, right? Those are things like adverse childhood experiences, adversity, trauma that we may experience in life. This can also be employment status. Being unemployed increases that stress, reduces resources for the family that can increase that risk for child maltreatment. So things like income level, employment status, and adversity through childhood can really affect.
Right. And so I understand too, like what we see in Clark County Family Services, especially our population of children that are in foster care, we have really, we see a lot of kids that are under 6 years old coming in for child abuse and neglect. So I think it also plays into the vulnerability of the child. If they're younger, if they don't necessarily know how to take care of themselves, that makes them a little more vulnerable. Perhaps children with special needs or chronic illness, would they be more at risk as well?
Yes. So children under the age of 5, they tend to be at a higher risk because they need so much help, right? They are still not as independent as a teenager, right? You're starting to learn to be more autonomous, more independent, right? And you need a lot of help. So that's when that risk can increase. Also, they need more attention, right? So child maltreatment happens at any stage of childhood, right? But we do see that increase also when it comes to children with disabilities, or even having a disability in the family can also increase that risk of child maltreatment due to that stress increase as well. That also can come with the lack of resources. I know many of the families that we have worked with, they struggle finding appropriate care for their children. So even when they're looking for medical care, for example, if they cannot find it, that is a struggle as well. That can lead to neglect, unfortunately. And some of the other risk factors that you were mentioning, being in the foster care system, having to experience family separation. I like to think a lot of that, of looking at stress and the stress levels and that uncertainty. And just overall as humans, it's difficult for us to deal with changes and uncertainty, right? And as children, as we are trying to make sense of the world, if we don't get that support to process those events, that can really lead to further trauma, and that can also increase that risk as well.
But when we're talking about child abuse and neglect, even if a child has medical or mental health issues or is more vulnerable, the child is never to blame.
Absolutely.
These children are innocent. They're learning the world. They really are just like looking for support around them. Sometimes behaviors can be misunderstood by caregivers that maybe just aren't educated on child development. But children are never to blame.
Absolutely. A child, like we said, a child deserves a happy, healthy, safe childhood, right? We all deserve that. Any adult that lives in this world, we all deserve to have a safe and stable childhood. So nothing that a child does is ever to blame or attribute to child maltreatment. Absolutely. A child is never at fault. And we also need to look at at the situations are so complex. So it's not only looking at the parent or caregiver or the person that did the abuse, but also looking at those societal levels and the impact that it has, right? If there is not enough resources for the family, or like you said, that lack of knowledge in child development, that is not common knowledge. It's not something that is open for everyone to learn in an evident way, right? You have to look for it, and we absolutely have resources that we will share later on. But if it's not a standard in our society, we cannot expect families to automatically know it, right? And so that can definitely be something that we can work on to increase safety.
And tell me if this would be correct, is, another risk factor for child abuse or neglect could be the role of alcohol or substance abuse, or maybe it's a generational thing passed down from family to family that, I was raised this way and that's how I'm going to raise my child. So what are your thoughts on how that plays into the risks for our children?
Yeah, so substance use is definitely a risk factor that inhibits you from doing the best you can as a parent or caregiver, right? That limits you physically, mentally. So it is definitely something that can affect, just as, a disability, a mental illness, a big change in your life, losing your job, losing your car, those uncertain, difficult moments in life. And the way to cope with it, right? That is also a struggle. And when we look at, I love that you mentioned, sometimes it is generational, and we have to think about it, right? We just talked about how knowledge of parenting and child development is not something common, right? So if I don't have the basis on evidence-based, parenting, positive parenting, what I'm going to use is my previous experience, is what I've been exposed to. So something that I mention a lot in the trainings I provide for child maltreatment is, if physical abuse is my normal and I grew up with physical abuse, I grew up with violence, that is going to be my normal, unless somehow someone helps me understand that that is not the way that it should be, that I should not have been exposed to violence, that I should not have experienced violence. And like you said, many said, well, that's how I was raised. That's how life is, right? And again, if we don't know different, it's very difficult to do different. So absolutely not having that support in better strategies and more positive strategies to create a trusting bond with your child can definitely affect.
Well, I think we are getting the big picture. It's stress, it's resources, it's families that, are over the brink, going through difficult times in their lives, poor coping skills, not enough education about parenting, could be generational, could be substance abuse. There's a lot of really complex factors that really lead, unfortunately, to hurting children. So I want to switch gears and let's talk about all of the positive things, the really wonderful protective factors that not only parents can play a role in, but you or I or teachers or educators or community providers or, neighbors. What are these protective factors so that way we can really strengthen families and make sure that families have those resources and education? Let's get into this on how we can reduce child abuse and neglect.
Absolutely. And this is my favorite part, right? Now, this is why we work at Prevent Child Abuse. I work at Prevent Child Abuse Nevada. Our focus is prevention because there are things that we can do. We can do to reduce child maltreatment and we can do to prevent it so that it never happens. And our focus is primary prevention. And that means that we are providing tools, we are providing resources, we are changing the way that our community is so that child maltreatment never happens. It's not something that happens in the first place. So when we talk about protective factors, those are characteristics, those are things that lower the likelihood of negative outcomes. So in this case, the likelihood of a child being experiencing abuse or neglect, right? Protective factors are things that can not only reduce that likelihood, but they can help heal and they can help process what happened, learn ways in improving situations and receiving that support so that that's like we talked about stress, right? That stress is reduced and that families can cope with the stresses of life and they can stay united. And if a child that had to be removed, from the household or with another family, they're with relatives, they can adjust to that transition and they can heal from any adversity experienced.
So I know there's several protective factors, and I want to go through them one by one so we really get a good grasp of what it takes to protect our children. And I'm hoping that by going through these protective factors, our audience tuning in today can really walk away with something actionable that they can do today to start strengthening families around them and their communities, and ultimately to prevent child abuse. So let's have the first protective factor.
Yes. So the first protective factor is nurturing and attachment. And as human beings, we need to be nurtured. That's part of being social beings. And there is so much power in having healthy attachments and knowing what a healthy attachment is, right? So children, just think of children and think of how much is decided for them and how much younger children depend on the adults in their life, right? So nurturing and attachment is creating that healthy bond, that connection between the caregiver or between an adult and a child that lets the child know that they are protected, that they can grow and they can learn in that space. So it's creating those safe spaces for them and those opportunities for them to connect with the adults in their life, and be able to build those trusting relationships. So we know that by having and focusing on nurturing and attachment, you are modeling. Then this is something that I tell in my positive parenting classes. You are modeling what a healthy relationship looks like. And so many children, and I worked in schools for about 7 years, and something that my students would struggle a lot was knowing what a healthy relationship is, what a friendship is, what does a positive friend look like, what does a healthy friend look like, right? How to communicate. And nurturing an attachment and building that at home creates that model of this is how I should be treated. This is what I deserve, right? This is the quality of relationships, and I deserve connection, and I deserve to be heard, and I deserve to feel safe. And that is the main thing when it comes to nurturing and attachment, is having those moments where children feel safe, they feel protected, they feel they can grow, they can make mistakes, they can learn.
So Mayra, as you were describing this protective factor to me, it reminds me of a bedtime story that I used to read to my daughter when she was a baby. It's called Baby Deer. I don't know if you're familiar with that story, but Baby Deer, one of the lines, the basis of the story is the little girl, her mom is having a baby, and they bring her home from the hospital, and they give the little girl a baby doll so she can care for her baby while mother cares for the newborn baby. And one of the lines in the book, the mother says, I talk to my baby and tell my baby that they are the most important baby in the world. And then the little girl says, and I tell my baby she's important too. So, making sure that kids know that they are important to you. I think so much when we think about in the child development world, like attachment, we do think of that infant stage, holding babies, carrying babies, having that eye-to-eye contact. But as children grow, we can still nurture that development by maybe having set routines that, we talk about the highs and lows of our days, or instead of, if a child makes mistakes, I know you said, like, we need to let our children know that they can learn from their mistakes. They can grow from their mistakes. So maybe having family discussions about maybe what went wrong, what could be done differently the next time. Are these all ways of things that people can do today to help children build that attachment?
Yes, absolutely. And like you said, a lot of times we just think of the younger children, right? But there are things that we can do throughout our entire child's life, even after adulthood, to keep that connection and keep that nurturing. And yes, definitely, it's providing those spaces that where they feel comfortable in telling you that they did something wrong or that something didn't work out their way, and it's a space where they don't feel judged. They know that they can talk to you about it, and you will help them learn from the experience so that it doesn't happen again, or if something similar were to happen in their life, they know how to take action in better or healthier ways for next time.
And I think as a parent, it's important to always remember to recognize your own emotion. If something goes wrong, if a glass of milk is spilled all over the taxes or whatever it might be, it's being a parent in that moment and taking a deep breath and recognizing your own feelings and making sure that, you put that past you, that you've named your emotion, that you've kind of sat with it, and then you're ready to move forward and be that parent again, instead of just, going from 0 to 60 because of the glass of spilled milk. So let's talk about the next protective factor.
Yeah, so what you just mentioned just goes perfectly into the next protective factor, which is the social and emotional competence of children and of families in general. So, and that goes from understanding your emotions and being able to identify how you are feeling. And not only once you identify it, you accept it. And that is something that many families, children, and adults struggle with, right? As a parent, a lot of times you feel that pressure of you always have to perform and you always have to be this parent, this caregiver that presents themselves as perfect, as they don't make mistakes, as they are, looking stoic all the time, right? And that is not how we are as humans, right? We have highs and lows as humans. We have a broad range of emotions, and being able to not only identify how we feel, but to accept it, it is such a big step into living a healthy and balanced life. So the social and emotional competence of children and families is talking about those emotions, having the space to talk about emotions, helping children identify them, and be able to say, if you are sad, that is okay. We will feel sad in our lifetime many times, right? Let's accept that we are sad. Let's try to understand why are we sad, right? Let's talk about it, and then go into that action piece. What can we do to improve the situation, right? If it's an emotion like I'm excited. What are you excited for? Communicate with me. Tell me, what is making you excited, right? What are you looking forward? And it is important to also guide our kids into learning how to express those emotions in healthy ways, right? And it goes to all the emotions, right? If we are angry, right, what are the healthy ways to express anger? If we are excited or really happy for something, right? How can we express that appropriately? I'll tell you a quick example, because a lot of times we only go with those like emotions like anger or sadness. But my husband and I were at REI, this camping outdoor store, and we were just looking at the chairs, and one little kid got really excited because they found a chair that rocks. And they got really excited, and they came in and hugged us. The kid hugged me. He was like a 6-year-old. And I'm happy that the kid is happy, right? But is hugging a stranger the best way to express emotion, right? So maybe looking at those boundaries and say, if you're really excited, you can say yay out loud, right? Or you can hug your parent, right? But even just guiding kids into these are the ways to express emotions, right? In ways that are safe for them, in ways that are healthy for them, in ways that they help them process the good, bad, and ugly, is a great way to build that.
And that can be hard, especially when you have a child who's younger or, may not be verbal yet. So I think as a parent, helping first and foremost, helping to name the feelings, or, I see that you're frustrated, and talking about what does frustrated feel like? Well, does frustrated make you feel a little warm? Do you feel your heart kind of start beating faster? Do you tense up your body,
Yeah.
And so helping kids feel that emotion, not just, like the emotional part, but the physical part of feelings too
Absolutely.
is so huge. And I think that the more we practice that, like teaching that to our kids, then the more we can reflect as parents or caregivers or educators or, anybody that's interacting with kids to like recognize what it feels like to be frustrated or scared or happy or upset, and really like name those emotions for children as they're learning how to develop healthy coping strategies.
Right. Yes. And I love a tool that is called the Wheel of Emotions that you can just Google, and there have many of them, and you can choose whatever works best for your family. But what I really like about it is that you can be more intentional, right, in talking about those emotions. And ideally, what we want is for kids to be able to identify their own emotions, right? So if you can see that your child is frustrated, we want to first try to see if they can say it themselves, right? If they can identify themselves, I'm feeling frustrated. If they cannot put the word, right? They say, I don't know how I feel. Then it's great. It's a great way to talk about those physical cues, right? Well, how does your heart feel? How does your body feel? Are you feeling tense is anything hurting? Do you feel like scrunching up your face? Do you feel like crying, right? What is happening to our bodies? And not only that, but talking about the intensity. I think it is so important as well. So talking about the emotion and the intensity of that emotion, because we can be more reactive. The more intense it is, right? We can be more reactive, and understanding when you may need a pause, when you may need a break is so important, and can really help with, not only with us regaining balance, but also keeping a healthy relationship between the caregiver and the child.
Right. And I think that recognizing that the break is needed can really play a huge role in prevention. Like maybe instead of thinking about it as like a timeout, but just like everybody's going to take a few minutes to just chill right now, right? Like we've got a child who's melting down no matter what age, because I know even teenagers
Absolutely.
can melt down. We've got a parent that, has a child that they're dealing with that's melting down. It's irritating to them. Their anger level is kind of rising. They feel that heat, that body, response. Like if the parent in that moment can just say, you know what, everybody just chill for a minute.
Right.
Do you think that helps prevent?
Oh, 100%. That is one of the strategies that we use the most. And one of the strategies that is more specific to that is what we call having a calming area, calming corner, whatever you want to call it. But just an area in the house where it's not a punishment, it's not timeout, it's a time for us to calm down, to regain balance. And so when I worked with families and they're like, yeah, my child just gets really overwhelmed, or I get really overwhelmed, or we're both getting overwhelmed, right? Say, all right, let's look at that intensity. And when we feel like we are not balanced, we're starting to tip down, right? You can always ask, I need time to calm down. You can suggest it to the kid, right? So what we tell parents is you don't want to force your kid. You cannot force someone and say, calm down, and they magically calm down, right? It doesn't happen in adulthood.
That escalates everything, right?
Right.
The worst thing you want to say is, I can see you're mad, calm down,
right? Relax.
Yeah.
I wish it was a magic word and it would just happen, but it doesn't happen, right? So what we want is provide the opportunity. Would you like to go to the calming corner and take a break? And we can come back later and talk. Or you can say as the adult, you know what? I don't want to yell at you. I don't want to say anything hurtful, and I am getting upset. So I am going to take a break. And make sure that you time it. So if it's 5 minutes, if it's 10 minutes, sometimes with teenagers, you may need an extended, period of time. Like let's meet in an hour, depending on what is going on. But always come back. And when you are taking that break, it's not to be on the phone. It's not to, it's not to forget about what happened. Is to regain balance. So always mention that and teach that strategy with the purpose is to regain balance so that we can continue having a conversation and reach a solution.
Right? Because during this period of escalation, really your central nervous system is kind of going haywire at that point. Mm-hmm. So that chill out time, that relaxation corner, as a parent, the best thing to do is recognize what's going on physically, mentally with yourself, gain control again over that central nervous system. It could be deep breaths. It could be taking a bath. It could be going for a walk. It could even be going into your room and screaming or crying into a pillow, right?
Yes, there are many things that you can do. And I'll tell you, like in my classroom, the calming corner was a rug. And the rug had a big feather. It had an oil diffuser that changed colors, and some kids just like to look at it change colors. I had different stress balls. I had color pencils and a pencil and paper for them to journal. They knew what was the purpose of every item there. I've had families that made it seem like a lounge. Their calming area was like a lounge for the kids.
I like that.
And they had snacks because they were like, my kids get hangry, right? And sometimes that dysregulation comes from hunger, comes from dehydration, especially in the summer. So if they're starting to feel fussy, I say, would you like to go to the calming corner? Is there anything you need from the calming corner, right? And they said, like, yeah, it has worked really well. And I have healthy snacks for them. I have like nuts, I have oranges, I have water for them. And they know that sometimes we need water. Sometimes we need a snack to feel a little bit better, and along with all the other tools. But always when we are doing that space for de-escalation, we want to make sure that we are teaching our kids the purpose of it, and that we are telling them if we're using it ourselves, right, which every parent, every adult should use that too, right? That whatever you're doing, that your kids can see it and see that it has a purpose, whether it is reading or taking a walk or deep breaths or maybe listening to a song or screaming to the pillow, right? There's a purpose, and the purpose is to regain balance.
Perfect. I love it. Okay. So far we've talked about protective factors being that nurturing adult that can form an attachment. And that doesn't have to just be the parent. That could also be a mentor, a teacher, a neighbor, an older sister, or maybe like an auntie or uncle that's close with the child. We've talked about in depth naming and recognizing your own emotions and teaching that kind of emotional awareness to your children. What's another protective factor?
Another one is parental resilience, and that builds into, that social emotional intelligence and competence. And parental resilience is for your kids to know that you are not perfect, right? And that there are stresses in life, but they see that you are processing them, that you are coping, you are modeling how to process that stress. Not only that, but for parents and caregivers to know that they have strengths. A lot of times we are very self-critical, and we think of all the things that we are doing wrong, all things that are not meeting our standards. And it's important for us to look at what we are doing great, because you are doing great. There are so many things that you as a parent, a caregiver, a caring adult are doing to help, to be a good model, to protect children, to support children. So it's looking at those strengths and increasing that self-esteem, and also looking at our areas of improvement, right, and working towards them, and that your kids see them. Something that I got to experience a couple of years ago was a suicide prevention teen forum, and someone from the audience asked the youth, and these were youth that had experienced mental health adversities, then illness, or had attempted self-harming behaviors, and this just resonates with me so much that the audience member asked, like, what is something that an adult could have done for you, or your parents could have done for you to let you know that you are loved, that you're supported? What would you like an adult to do? And all of them said, I would like them to be true and show me that they also struggle. I would like my parents to tell me that they are not perfect and that life happens and it's difficult. And, we are all humans trying to live our best lives. And they were like, that would have helped me so much to reach out for help if I knew that I didn't have to act perfect all the time. So I think that really resonates with me, because yes, we have strengths, but we're not perfect. And sitting in our imperfectness and just really showing how we're all trying to be better humans, in the capacity that we can, is a great way to remove that stigma from seeking help or just from saying, hey, I need some tools, I need some support.
So when you're talking about, these kids that said, I just needed a real example, it really reminds me of like Instagram, that perfect Instagram picture,
Right.
these social media that makes it seem like kids and parents are living this like amazing
Right.
life and everything's so perfect. But then you see like, like the like Instagram nailed it pictures, like what it really took to get that
Right.
great family picture when you've got the kids crying in the background and the mom and dad, just trying to get it all together with the family.
Right.
We need more of that reality. And then the other thing I wanted to talk about with parental resilience is I think it's also about like building up. So I get this metaphor of like this rubber band, right? Like as a parent, as a family, you have this unit and you need to be this rubber band that's strong to hold this unit together. But in the meantime, we've got things that are being tucked in here that's really stretching this rubber band, like, we mentioned the taxes, or maybe a job loss, or maybe a death in the family, or maybe the car breaks down. And you have all of these things kind of stretching this rubber band thin until that rubber band is on the brink of breaking. And then, we've got some real issues at hand. So with parental resilience, building up your resilience as a parent so you can be that strong band, keeping your family together, like, how do parents do this? Like, is it how they deal with stress? Is it, asking for help? Like, what plays into building this kind of resilience as a parent?
Absolutely. So resilience, and it goes into similar into that rubber band, right? That resilience, the ability to bounce back from difficult situations, right? That adversity happens, something unexpected happens, and it's not the end of the world, right? We are processing it, we are learning from it, and we are improving our situation in the way that we can. There are things that we can control, there are things that we can't, and resilience is doing what we can to regain that balance, right? And with the metaphor of the rubber band, right? The first thing that came to my mind, it doesn't have to be a single rubber band, right? And that goes into the next protective factor of social connections and having a support network, right? You don't have to do things alone, and I think that's a very difficult thing for many parents, many caregivers, to know that they don't have to be doing this alone.
So the next protective factor you mentioned is the social connections, really getting that help from the people around you, from the community around you. We just hosted an event with faith-based leaders. And one of the faith-based leaders was sharing an example of a family that was coming to their support group offered at the church. It was a support group for foster parents. And the church has these care communities that wrap the foster family with resources like meals, with gift cards, with, respite, babysitting opportunities. And this foster parent texted the leader of the support group, and she said, I don't understand why all these people are giving to me. Why are they providing me meals once a week? Why are they offering this to me? And even when help is at your doorstep, ready to, let's say you're the parent, you're the rubber band, and you've got this beautiful ribbon ready to tie you up and give you that extra level of support. It's still difficult for people to accept that, even when it's right there in front of you. So talk to me and our viewers about the importance of these social connections and how that plays really a role into preventing child abuse.
Absolutely. So social connections is having that support network that you can count on times of stress, but not only on times of stress, just that you feel supported, right? Is again, and if you think of that rubber band, right, and if it's just you, and if it's just a single rubber band, right, you can only go so far. But if you have that strengthening, right, that ribbon, you have other areas, right, that's providing you some relief. Those are the people in your life that provide you with relief, that help you enjoy life, that help you feel supported, not only you but your entire family, right? And there can be things like community support, like your place of worship. It can be your neighbors. It can be parents that are in school that are, where their kids are in the same school your kids are, or they play the same sport. It can be family members. It can be many in many areas. And I love that you mentioned how even when help is at your doorstep, it can seem difficult, right? It can be difficult to accept it. And that is something that we are working on with a campaign that we're currently working on for it to be done in the summer, to reduce the stigma behind reaching out for help and receiving help. And part of it is, feeling like you have to do things alone. And I challenge that mentality and say, you don't. We're social beings. Humans are social beings, and we're not meant to do things alone, right? We would not have survived. We need communities. That's why we have places where a lot of people live together. It's not just one house here, right? And then miles and there's no one, right? For many communities, and even if it's that separated, they still communicate. We all meet at groceries, right? We all have central places. And it is because we need each other as humans. And knowing that there are agencies out there that truly care and want you. We have support and we have resources because we want to give them, because we want you to get that support, for you to know that we care about you, we care about your kids. And yeah, I really challenge that mentality of, who says you have to do it alone? You don't, right? We are here all to support each other and grow. So finding your people that you feel comfortable with, people that you can trust, people that support you, is so important. And that is one of the main homework assignments that I give parents, especially parents who either are new foster parents or are new adoptive parents, or they just had a baby. Say, who are your social connections? Who is your support group? And have at least 3 people that you can tell me outside of your immediate family that you can reach out to. And if you don't have that, then let's look into that. Let's go to a family resource center. Let's meet your neighbor. Let's talk to a parent in the school that your child is going to. Right.
Let's build a network.
Let's build that network.
So I love that. And so for anybody that's out there, that isn't a parent, or maybe your kids are grown, you see the neighbors that have a new baby, or, that may have a busy teenager, drop off a meal. Nobody's going to ask for it. Right. Offer to help with something that, you're good at, that you like to do. That can really show that family that you care without them having to ask for that help. I think that's one way people can help prevent child abuse. It's just kind of being a good person to others that may be in need. Yes,
especially for, if you have friends that are families, or, families in your neighborhood, just say like, hey, I'm going to the grocery store. Do you want me to pick up anything for you? And it can be that they even give you the money and you just go purchase the stuff for them, right? That's saving them a trip.
Easy.
That is stress that is gone.
Right.
They don't have to worry about that.
Because we want to lessen that family stress. Okay, Absolutely. So let's keep talking. I know we have 2 more protective factors here. What is the next protective factor that we're going to discuss?
So the next protective factor is knowledge of parenting and child development. And we already talked about it, right? We talked about how that is not common knowledge, and it's something that should be more common, right? And there are resources out there, like the Parenting Project, the trust-based relational training that is provided by Raise the Future. Having knowledge of the milestones of development, what should your child be doing by a certain age, knowing the changes in the different stages of life, right? Once puberty hits, right? What am I expecting? That can help reduce stress, and that can help you support your child better. So absolutely having that knowledge, equipping yourself with the tools and knowing what may come, what is coming next, what conversations should I be having with my kids, not waiting until it happens, because then that's when we have those high reactions. Because if we're not prepared for them, or it just unexpectedly happens, right, it's going to be a stressful time for all of for all involved.
Right. So, again, going back to like, there's so many great resources out there, especially, if you're a new mom, like you've probably read through What to Expect When You're Expecting, but the books don't stop there. There's books out there. There's podcasts out there on, raising happy and healthy school age children, teenagers. There's a plethora of resources, and even one of the most simple resources and trustworthy is your child's pediatrician, right? Asking them what's happening next developmentally. Right. What should I expect? How can I help and support my child as they grow? So
absolutely,
our kids don't come with instruction books.
Manuals.
Yep,
yes,
we know that.
That's what I say. I'm like, it's not like you have a kid and the software gets downloaded in your brain. I'm like, we have to get those tools. We have to learn.
Yeah, we have to keep up with them because they're not going to stop growing.
Absolutely.
I'm glad you mentioned the parenting project. So if anybody out there is interested in taking, these are free community classes. They have classes designed to support parents of new babies, parents of school age, children with special needs. They even have a special course for dads. Yes. Because it shouldn't be just up to the mom to figure all of this
absolutely.
Out, right? We need our dads involved. We need fathers that are modeling healthy relationship building with their kids too. So check that out. It's on the Clark County website. If you look under family services, you can look for the parenting project classes there. Okay, I think we have one last protective factor that we're going to get into.
Yes, and the last protective factor is concrete supports in times of need, and just concrete supports overall. That means having a community that is supportive, having resources out there like the Parenting Project, like Boys Town, like the Harbor, having places where families can go for support, and that they truly get the support that they need. So having that concrete support is so important, especially when it comes to preventing crisis. Right. So being able to go to a family resource center and get the help that you need, that is going to prevent anything, any child maltreatment, any crisis, right? Because the family is going and saying, hey, I need help, and they're getting the help that they need. So that is, one is for families to reach out for support, right, when they need it, but also for us as agencies to be able to truly meet the family where they're at and provide what they need so that we can prevent child maltreatment.
And I know, like, from what we see in Clark County Family Services, usually about half of the kids that are coming into foster care are entering foster care because of neglect. And that could be the failure for adequate food or shelter or medical attention or mental health attention services. So really, this concrete support in times of need can help prevent that neglect piece. If you need housing, there's housing resources. If you need food, let's figure out, are there, community soup kitchens or food pantries? I know like 3 Square offers free meals for kids through the libraries. There's resources throughout the whole entire valley, throughout all of Clark County. A great way to look for these resources is Clark County Social Services. You can even start with calling 211, right? Nevada211.org is a great website. It has a whole list of resources that you can locate in your own backyard. But please, if you're out there and you know somebody that is in crisis, that needs resources, they might not be in the mindset to seek them out themselves. But if you say, hey, I found this food pantry and I went and picked up some supplies for you, or you don't even have to tell them you went to the food pantry. You could say, hey, I got these groceries for you. But if you do know a family that's struggling, please help them find the resources, because that is one of the best ways to prevent child neglect from neglecting your children.
And it's not waiting until it happens, right? Not waiting until you need food or a family tells you that they need food. It's saying, hey, did you know that we have these food pantries nearby, right? And at the libraries, we train all the library staff for the Las Vegas Clark County Library District. And one of the things that we say is like, yes, you're a mandated reporter. You're supposed to, you're mandated to report any suspicion of child abuse or neglect, but also think of yourself as a mandated supporter and think about, what can I do to support? What can I do to can I have the food pantries in our area, or bus schedules? What can I have out there? What can I provide that is just there in case any family needs it, or, it's just visible for them to access and make those resources accessible for them.
I like that, mandated supporter. That's awesome. Because really, in our position with family services, our main goal is to keep families together.
Right.
The very last thing that we want to do is have to remove a child from a home. But of course, when the conditions are not safe for the child to remain with the biological family, then of course they'll enter relative care or foster care. However, the very first thing that family services will do is try to put in some supports for the family. Do they need help with their utilities? Can we connect them with social services to get, their electric turned back on?
Right.
Do they need food resources? Do they need housing resources? So these concrete supports in times of need, it's really meeting the basic needs of that family that might be going through a difficult situation.
Absolutely.
So you mentioned before, the ACEs. Tell me what ACEs are, and then let's get into the Foster Leader podcast is really for people that are interested in becoming foster parents, or people that are foster parents watching this podcast. How can our foster families, how can any caregiver out there, even grandma, auntie, uncle, how can we help children, support children with these ACEs to move forward in their lives? So first, tell me what an ACE is, and then let's talk about how to support these kids with these ACEs.
Yes. So ACEs stands for Adverse Childhood Experiences. And those are the adversities that happen in childhood. It started with a study by Kaiser Permanente, and there were only 10 ACEs. I won't go into details of. I encourage you to look more into ACEs if you are interested. I can talk for hours about
ACEs is basically like something that was traumatic that happened, adverse childhood experiences. So something
like
traumatic.
Abuse, like neglect. So it could be abuse, neglect, family separation, mental illness in the household, right? All of those things. That can affect the trajectory of that life, and can lead to negative health outcomes. So the study is very interesting. It was able to connect these ACEs to the 10 most common causes of death in the United States, and it's going back to that stress, to toxic stress, to not being able to process something that happened to you because you don't understand. If something happened to you in childhood and you didn't receive the tools to heal it, it stays with you. Right? There's a really good book that I recommend called The Body Keeps the Score. And it just tells you, if we don't heal from what happened to us, it stays with us until we can process it and heal. And our body's going to react to it. I'm
actually very familiar with that book.
Love that book.
The Body Keeps Score is amazing. It really goes into a lot of veterans' accounts of what they've experienced, how PTSD manifests, and it goes from like an emotional experience that they have from, being in war or whatever they've seen in their time in service, and then how it manifests within the body. And, you think that maybe this thing that you're going through, this sleeplessness, you think it's just insomnia and it's an isolated thing, but it really is connected back to this PTSD. So how do we help children process? Because I think the key that they try to explain in the Body Keeps Score is that early intervention, that healing process. How do we move forward? How do we help our kids? What's something that a caregiver can do if they suspect or know that their child has suffered some sort of traumatic experience in their childhood.
Right. So one thing, is using the protective factors, that social emotional competence, and providing those spaces to talk about situations that happened is important. But another great way for us to help mitigate the adverse effects of ACEs is by using positive childhood experiences. And we never want to talk about ACEs without talking about positive, right? About PCEs, which are the positive childhood experiences. These are ways that we can help promote those healthy childhoods. We can help surround our kids with support so that they can heal from what happened, or to mitigate and prevent things from happening. So some of the positive childhood experiences that we want to promote are the ability to talk to family and to other adults and to their peers about feelings. So kids being able to talk about feelings and situations that happen to them. The sense of the family being supportive, of them knowing, as we mentioned earlier, that they are important to the family, right? That when there are difficult times happening, that they feel supported, they feel loved, they feel reassured. Participating in activities that they enjoy. Kids need activities. They need things that they can find joy in. So finding those activities, community traditions, community events where they can participate, it's very important as well. Having a sense of belonging in the family and in the school. And we actually captured data on sense of belonging with the Youth Risk Behavior Survey. And you can tell, how kids are doing and feeling like they are wanted in school. And it just, as humans, we would like to feel wanted, right? We want to belong in the spaces that we're in. So working on that sense of belonging is a great way for us to build that. Feeling supported by their friends. If kids feel supported by their family and friends, that is a great way to help mitigate any stress, any adversity that may happen. If they have at least 2 caring adults that genuinely care for them. And we specify genuinely because most kids can immediately tell when someone does not genuinely care for them, right? They can sense that in school. They can sense that in the adults in their family. So it's important for us to genuinely care for kids and show them that, and be honest in our behaviors as well. And then the last one is feeling safe and protected by at least one adult in the home, that they feel that the home environment is safe and they have someone they can trust at home is very important as well.
And I think part of this, providing this safety, is really giving kids a routine and making sure that they know what's coming next. Because You've talked earlier about that uncertainty can feel really scary, stressful, so creating these routines, even if it's just a simple bedtime routine that know as a family you're going to go brush your teeth together, you're going to go get your jammies on, hop in a bed, read some books. Maybe there's something that you say to your child every night before bedtime, like, "You're so special to me, I'll see you in the morning, I love you." Right. Saying that every night to a child can have a profound impact on the kind of relationship that you have. I've seen families that develop special handshakes to say goodnight or goodbye. So it's really giving kids that sense of security, that stabilization of a routine, that they know what to expect, they know what's next. So,
absolutely.
All right, perfect. So we've talked about routines. We've talked about the emotion wheel. What other ways can people, help their kids at home?
Yeah, some other ways. We talked about validating emotions, but I just want to mention that that again, just allow your kid to feel what they feel. If your kid feels angry, they already feel that way. You have to accept it, right? And a lot of times we tend to be reactive and say, "Why are you angry? You did this to yourself. If you wouldn't have done this, then this wouldn't happen, and you wouldn't be angry or upset." Right? And it's not to not give any consequences, but you have to help them understand that yes, they're feeling that way, and that way is valid. You can say, I can see that you are upset. I can see that you are frustrated or angry because you don't get to hang out with your friends because you didn't do your homework. You can say, like, I'm acknowledging that you're feeling this way. I can understand that you feel angry because you're not going to go to see your friends. However, it is happening because you decided to not do your homework. So what can we do next time? Right? So you can acknowledge feelings and give consequences at the same time. And I think that is just such an important part of continuing into building that strong connection with kids that is going to be very helpful.
All right. Well, Mayra, I think we're going to wrap it up here. Go through a list of resources for our families out there that you recommend, especially for our foster families. Where can they go to learn more about protective factors, to learn more about that really important piece, that child development, parental education piece? Where can they go?
Yes, especially for foster parents, there is a great resource called Raise the Future, and they are statewide, and they have a training called the TBRI training. Is the trust-based relational intervention, and it goes into brain science, into child development. It is fantastic. It is a fantastic training. I love it. I love promoting it, especially for children that have experienced family separation, that may need those routines, that need to feel. We need to build that trust. We need to build that sense of safety because it hasn't been there, right? Or it's been inconsistent. So it is a great training that I encourage any foster parent to take, all foster parents to take. You can go to their website, that is raisethefuture.org. You can also call them at 702-436-6335. And they also have virtual coaching and they have support groups. So again, if you're looking into building that support network, those social connections, it is a great place to start. Another one that we really like is the Kinship Navigator from Foster Kinship. So that is if you are a relative, you're being a foster parent or caregiver, and you are related to the child. So they focus on those situations, and they also have a lot of resources and support so that you can provide those safe, stable, and nurturing spaces for the kids. And their website is fosterkinship.org, and you can give them a call at 1-844-810-1667. And I know we talked about the Parenting Project. They have the Triple P classes that are great. They have for babies up to teens, and they have for children with disabilities. They have for dads. They have different trainings that are great as well. Another one is Boys Town. They have the Common Sense Parenting. They have been doing them virtual. As far as I know, they're still virtual, which is convenient for a lot of families that you can be making dinner or be at home doing things, taking care of your kids while taking the class at the same time. So it's an accessible resource as well. And you can always reach out to us if you need help. If you want us to connect you to any of the parenting classes, or you're struggling to reach out to any of them, we're happy to help you connect. So you can you can give us a call at 702-895-5053, or you can send us an email at preventchildabusenevada@unlv.edu and just say, hey, I need connections. I would like to take the class for TBRI if the website seems intimidating for you, or you don't know how to call, where to call, or you just don't know where to start. We're happy to connect with you and help you reach out to those resources.
Well, Mayra, thanks again for joining us today on the Foster Leader podcast. To all of our viewers out there, I hope that during the month of April and beyond, really the whole year, you take some of these steps, whether you're a parent or not. You could be a community member, you could be an educator. If you have kids in your neighborhood, there are things that you can do to help support and strengthen families. So again, thank you so much to Mayra, and it really is everybody's job out there to help protect our children and prevent child abuse.